Hi, everyone. Thank you for your interest in what we consider to be California's most charismatic fish, the grunion. I'm Melissa Studer, Director of Grunion Greeters and Treasurer of the Beach Ecology Coalition. Grunion are small, silvery fish known for their spectacular spawning habits. During the spring and summer months, the fish come completely out of the water onto sandy beaches to reproduce. This happens after the highest tides associated with a full moon or a new moon. Grunion are found off California and parts of Baja and nowhere else in the world. So whether you are a seasoned volunteer in need of a refresher or a first-time grunion observer, we thought this video might provide some helpful information before you head to the beach. We would also really appreciate receiving a report from your experience. So bear with me while I do a screen share to offer some visuals as we go through what you need to know about the grunion. So Grunion Greeters are our volunteer citizen scientists who are monitoring the beaches. There's just no practical way to monitor all of the grunion runs ourselves, given that they're happening at the same time throughout many, many beaches in the state of California. It is important for us to have consistent data from one year to the next. We use the data in research determining their population trends, and also to keep them protected. We work with many municipalities throughout the state. They'll take into consideration the grunion before activities such as beach grooming and sand replenishment. So there's no practical way to accomplish this without the help of volunteers, given that they're spawning simultaneously on these nights throughout many, many sites. I'd like to direct you to our website. It's very easy to remember, grunion.org. This has all kinds of information for you and updates on what's going on the current year. Also on our homepage of our website is a link to a very short documentary. It's actually an award-winning documentary, about 25 minutes long. And it will provide you with absolutely everything you need to know about the biology and behavior of the grunion. So I encourage you to please watch it. Also on our website, there is a link on the left, if you see the red arrow, that is to when the grunion run. This is obviously a very important piece of information that you need to know. So every year, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife publishes a comprehensive schedule of all potential spawning nights. So from as early as March to as late as August, there are 4 nights after each full or new moon. However, we focus on specific nights and specific times of the year. This is considered peak spawning season. So April, May, and June, and we also focus on the 3rd and 4th nights after the full moon or new moon. The grunion runs tend to be more consistent and better on those nights.
Closed season is April, May, and June. Open season is March and then July through August. The times listed are for high tide plus 2 hours. Runs may occur anytime within that 2-hour window, so patience is important. You might have to wait a little bit before you see your run starting to happen. So during closed season, no take is allowed of any kind, no contact. Open season means you can fish with restrictions. You can't use any gear of any kind, no nets, you can't scoop them up with a bucket. You have to have a fishing license if you're over 16, and there is a bag limit of 30 fish per person. So we advocate observe and conserve, so we have healthy population for future generations going forward.
The number one question we get asked other than when is where? Which site is the best spot? And I don't have a good answer, unfortunately, because it varies widely. So for example, when we are conducting our training workshops in San Diego, we will have a list of sites. These have a good history of runs. They have a history of us receiving data from these sites, but it doesn't mean they won't spawn elsewhere. It's really important that you choose a sandy beach. The wider, the better. And sandy, not rocky. It has to be a beach that you have access to, that you're allowed to be on in the middle of the night. Some beaches do close. So instead of exactly where to go, we want to focus on the conditions and the potential for spawning. So knowing where they have been running one night doesn't really help you for another night. They're neither more or less likely to run at the same site again. Again, it varies. We also can't tell you exactly where to go because conditions change. Some beach may be really wide and sandy one year, and then a lot of erosion could make it a narrow beach, not as ideal for the Grunion. There also could be activities going on that beach. So we really want to give you some guidance. And if you ask us, if you give us some sites near you, we of course will provide any kind of information we have to guide you on where to choose your beach. The night of monitoring before you head out, you want to make sure you're dressed appropriately, of course. It's damp, it's chilly out there, and your feet will get wet. We don't recommend going barefoot, as in this photo, because you don't know what you're stepping on in the dark. And also, some safety issues. We want you to park where maybe it's a little well lit. Don't leave valuables in your car, and of course, obey all parking restrictions and signage. We're not responsible for getting you out of a ticket if you're parked where you shouldn't be. So just be aware of the situation around you, and also make sure it's a beach that you have access to that isn't closed at night. In terms of tips for success, once you get down to the beach, your behavior is going to be important, as well as the behavior of other beachgoers. So once you get to your site, try to choose a part that is quieter, calmer. If there's a huge bonfire with music playing, I would head further up the beach. And also your behavior within your own group is important. You want to stay quiet and calm. Not running up and down the beach chasing the Grunion, because that's going to deter them from continuing to run, and also from building into one of those spectacular runs that we all want to see. So as you're monitoring your beach and slowly walking up and down, we want you to assess the strength of the run. You're not going to be counting fish. That's just not practical. It's almost more like how we assess the strength of a hurricane, groupings within each category. So the Walker scale was named after Dr. Boyd Walker, who pioneered Grunion research as we know it in the 40s. He basically is the one who figured out that they spawn according to the lunar cycle. So W0 means there's really not much to see, maybe just a few individual fish, but no spawning. Mark that as a W0. W1, 10 to 100 fish, a little bit of spawning or not much spawning. W2 would be hundreds of fish scattered across the beach, or maybe clustered in one activity with spawning. A W3, several hundred to 1,000 fish spawning in one or several locations along the beach. This is considered a really nice, strong run that you would be lucky to experience. And then a W4 is pretty spectacular. This is when you have thousands of fish across a really wide area of the beach. And finally, a W5, which unfortunately is a lot rarer than it used to be, but this is when fish are covering every inch of the sand. You can't walk without stepping on them, as well as the run is lasting longer. So it's lasting an hour or more. And sometimes that's the only difference between a 4 and a 5, is how long the spawning activity is occurring. So here's some more visuals to help you determine the difference between, say, a 0 and a 1. That one's easy. Not much happening. You might see a couple individual fish. Our Grunion Greeters are still grateful for that. The woman on the right, that was her first attempt, so that was good for her. However, a W2 is even better. So here we have hundreds of fish. There's W3. This is some more Grunion Greeters. You can see in the background. This is quite a nice run. A W4, again, is a very strong run. On this particular night when I was there, it might have been a 5 if it had lasted longer, but it didn't quite make it to a 5 because of the length of time. So this is the best it gets. This is just incredible. So this is fish everywhere, lasting more than an hour over a very wide area of the beach, almost as far as you can see. So we'd like to know what you saw out there, regardless if there was a run. If you saw nothing, that's still very important for us to have that information. So we please encourage you to submit a report. It's free, 5-10 minutes of your time. You can go onto our website and you can see the arrow for report observations and click on the fish, and then it'll take you to a form. There's also a QR code, so you can scan that and even submit your report from the beach. So here's the form. So the when you were there is important for us, and sometimes you'll be there after midnight, so technically it's the date of the next morning. But rather than putting the next morning date, we really want you to think of it as the night of the run, and that just keeps it simple for us to know exactly when you were there. Where you were, the county and the beach. If there's a name of the beach, there might be a couple names of the area. More details and description, the better. We want to know when you were there and how many people in your group, and of course, if you saw spawning. If you did see spawning, we want to know when they appeared and when they stopped appearing. Leave it blank, obviously, if you didn't see anything. And then as you're estimating your Walker scale number, we want you to think of it in terms of the peak of the run. That's how you're going to be scoring it. If you're not sure if it's, say, a 2 or a 3, call it a 2 and then provide some additional comments. I'll show you where that is at the end of the form. So here's more of a description of the run, as well as how big an area. And again, you can put some additional comments in the box under other there. We want to know about weather. If it's full on downpouring, they probably won't run, but if it's a light drizzle or rain, they still will run. Somehow there's a myth out there that if it's a cloudy night, they won't run. That's not true. We have no idea how that came about, but they will run on a cloudy night. We also want to know about rack on shore and how many other people were on the beach when you were down there. Did you see any predators? They can be as spectacular as the fish themselves. There's a shovel-nosed guitarfish and a young California sea lion pup. Lots of birds out there, night herons, as well as other birds that are not actually nocturnal, but they appear at night on the beach during runs. So somehow they know. And I should also say the birds are a great tip that they're thinking, the Grunion are thinking about running. They know before we do. So if you see birds lined up and down the beach, hang out with them, be patient, try not to startle them or the fish. So were there any lights on the beach? If there's a lot of shining, inconsistent bright light, that could deter a run. If there's a steady spotlight, they don't mind that. So when you're using your flashlight, if you're using a flashlight, just try to limit, try not to wave it around too much. And also the behavior of the people on the beach. We want to know that. Those things may negatively impact the run, the lights, the predators, lots of noise and activity. I should also mention, my dogs love going to the beach, but I leave them at home on Grunion nights because they are considered predators and they could deter the run. Poaching. We do want to know about poaching, and this is when someone is taking the fish during closed season of April and May. Contact is absolutely not allowed of any kind during those months. Anyone who is touching the fish is considered poaching. Also, during open season, when you are allowed to take the fish, but with restrictions, if you are using a net like this woman in the picture, she is poaching. So in terms of confronting poachers, we generally don't recommend it. It's not your job to do. Please call it in to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and leave a message. You won't get a call back, but they do track the poaching reports. And if there are lots of reports at one particular site, they may plan to bring some wardens out that night and stop them. So that is important for us. We also just want to get a sense of how experienced you are. If you're a first-time Grunion observer, hopefully a successful Grunion observer, and also if you've been going out year after year. We do have training workshops. So we want to know if you attended one in the past, and anything else that you wish to tell us about your night. So here's where we want your contact information, and this is if there's a question about your report, so we can get in touch with you for clarification. Again, a reminder, 0 is a number. We still want to know if you went out and didn't see anything. That's really important for us. If you want to be on your list, you'll receive reminders from me before each potential spawning night during peak season. I can assure you that we absolutely do not share your information with anyone for any reason. We only contact you if you've said you're okay with being contacted, and that will only be about the Grunion. So thank you so much for your time. Again, I want to direct you to our website, grunion.org, a wealth of information and photos and video clips and research articles, as well as our contact information if you have any questions or if you'd like to be added to our mailing list so you receive the reminders that I mentioned. So with that, thank you and happy Grunion Greeting.